The stars had always watched humanity, but humanity had never known that something among those stars was watching back. For 60 years, the collective had kept their eyes on the small blue planet called Earth. They had sent tiny probe ships that floated silent and invisible in the darkness of space. These probes recorded everything. They watched humans launch their first satellites. They watched humans walk on their moon. They watched humans build space stations that looked like toys compared to technology. Ambassador Al was one of the oldest and most respected diplomats in the collective. He had brought 47 species under control during his long career. Some had joined willingly. Most had not, but all of them had learned the same lesson in the end. The collective was too powerful to resist. Al stood in the Great Council chamber on his home world. 12 members of the High Council sat before him in a half-circle. Their gray skin reflected the blue light of the holographic display that floated in the center of the room. The display showed Earth, spinning slowly, covered in clouds and oceans. "The humans are ready," Al said. His voice was calm and confident. "They have achieved basic space travel. Their fastest ships take months to reach their neighboring planets. Their weapons are primitive, chemical explosives, nuclear devices that they are too afraid to use. They pose no threat to us." One of the council members leaned forward. His name was High Minister, and he was known for asking difficult questions. "What of their nature? Our probes have recorded their history. They are a violent species. They wage war against each other constantly." Al made a gesture that meant dismissal among his people. "This is precisely why they need our guidance. Left alone, they will destroy themselves within a few centuries. We offer them salvation, structure, purpose. They should be grateful." "And if they are not grateful?" asked. "Then they will learn to be," Al replied, "as all species do." The council voted unanimously to approve the mission. 12 warships would travel to Earth. They would make contact with the humans and offer them a place in the collective. The offer would be generous. The humans would keep their planet. They would keep their cultures and their languages. They would simply need to accept oversight of their governments, their militaries, and their scientific development. It was a good offer, better than most species received. Al was feeling merciful. The fleet departed 3 days later. The journey took 2 weeks at faster-than-light speed. When they arrived at the edge of the human solar system, Al ordered his communications officer to send a message to Earth. The message was polite. It explained that the collective had been watching humanity with great interest. It praised human achievements in science and art. It expressed hope for a peaceful and productive relationship between their peoples, and it requested that humanity send their finest vessel to meet the fleet at the asteroid belt for diplomatic discussions. Al was pleased with the message. It struck the right tone, friendly but firm, welcoming but superior. The humans would understand their place soon enough. On Earth, the message arrived at 3 o'clock in the morning. Commander Jack was on duty at the United Earth Defense Force monitoring station when the signal came through. He was a tall man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years in military service, and he had been waiting for this moment for most of them. Jack read the message twice. Then he read it a third time. His hands were steady as he picked up the secure phone and dialed the number he had memorized years ago. Admiral Kate answered on the second ring. She never slept much. Running the UEDF kept her busy at all hours. "It's happening," Jack said. "They're here, 12 ships at the edge of the belt. They want to talk." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Kate spoke. Her voice was calm, almost amused. "They want to talk. How polite of them. They're asking us to send our finest vessel." Kate laughed. It was a short, hard sound. "I bet they are. They probably expect us to send something with chemical rockets and a few missiles strapped to the side." "That's exactly what they expect," Jack agreed. "Our friends have been watching us for a long time. They've seen everything we wanted them to see." "Then I suppose it's time to show them what we've been hiding," Kate paused. "Wake up the President, wake up the Joint Chiefs, and send the activation code to Luna Base 7. Jack felt his heart beat faster. Luna Base 7. He had heard whispers about that place for years. A secret facility built deep beneath the surface of the moon. A place where the best engineers and scientists from every nation on Earth had been working together in absolute secrecy. "Yes, ma'am," he said, and the response to the "Tell them we're honored by their invitation. Tell them we'll send our representative vessel within 48 hours. And tell them we look forward to productive discussions." Jack smiled. The message would sound humble and eager. They would think they had already won. They would have no idea what was coming. Deep beneath the lunar surface, in a shipyard carved from 3 million tons of solid rock, the lights were coming on. Men and women who had trained for years in secret were running to their stations. Engines that had never been tested at full power were beginning to warm up. Weapons systems that existed nowhere in any public record were being armed. Captain Ben Harper stood in the center of it all. He was 42 years old, with dark hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. He had been chosen to command this vessel because he was the best pilot, the best tactician, the best leader, and because he understood what was at stake better than anyone. He looked up at the ship that filled the enormous cavern. It was 2 kilometers long. Its hull was black and angular, designed not for beauty but for war. Every surface bristled with gun turrets and missile tubes. The main cannon ran along the entire length of the spine, a weapon so powerful that it had only been fired once in testing. That single shot had vaporized an asteroid the size of a small mountain. The ship was called the Goliath, and it was about to introduce humanity to the galaxy. Ben touched the hull with one hand. The metal was cold and smooth. "Wake up, old friend," he whispered. "It's time to go to work." The engines roared to life. The sound echoed through the cavern like thunder. Above them, the stars waited, and somewhere among those stars, the waited too, completely unaware that everything they believed about humanity was about to be proven wrong. Captain Ben Harper had waited his entire life for this moment. He stood on the bridge of the Goliath and watched his crew work at their stations. These were the best men and women that Earth had to offer. They had trained in secret for years. They had left behind families and friends who thought they were working on boring government projects. They had sacrificed everything for this mission. Now it was time to see if all that sacrifice had been worth it. "All stations report ready," said Lieutenant Amy Wells. She was the communications officer, a young woman with short red hair and sharp eyes. She had a gift for languages and had spent the last 5 years learning every alien dialect that Earth's intelligence agencies had managed to record. "Engineering reports all systems green," added Chief Engineer Sam. He was a heavy-set man with thick arms covered in old burn scars. Those scars came from an accident in the early days of the program, when a prototype reactor had nearly exploded. Sam had stayed at his post and fixed the problem while his skin burned. That kind of dedication was common among the Goliath's crew. Ben nodded at each report. His face was calm, but inside his chest his heart was pounding. "Tactical status." Lieutenant Laura Kent looked up from her console. She was tall and athletic, with hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her job was to control the most powerful weapons ever created by human hands. "All batteries are charged and ready. Main cannon is at full power. Point defense systems are active. We can fight the moment we clear the shipyard." "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Ben said. "But if it does, we'll be ready." The Goliath began to move. Giant doors in the ceiling of the cavern slid open, revealing the black sky of the lunar surface above. The ship rose slowly at first, its massive engines pushing against the moon's weak gravity. Then it cleared the opening and burst into space like a monster emerging from its den. Ben watched through the main as the stars spread out before him. He had seen this view many times in simulators, but simulators could never capture the real feeling. The endless darkness, The tiny points of light that were actually giant suns burning billions of miles away. The sheer size of the universe that surrounded their small ship. Small, that was a strange word to use for the Goliath, but compared to the universe, everything was small. Set course for the asteroid belt, Ben ordered. Maximum speed. Let's not keep our guests waiting. The Goliath accelerated. Its engines burned with blue-white fire that left a trail across the darkness. The ship was not graceful. It did not glide through space like the elegant vessels that science fiction writers had imagined. It moved like a charging bull, powerful and unstoppable. On Earth, people looked up at the sky and saw nothing. The Goliath was too far away to see with the naked eye, but millions of people knew that something important was happening. Governments around the world had released a carefully prepared statement. Alien visitors had arrived in the solar system. Earth was sending a representative to meet them. There was no need for panic. Some people panicked anyway, but most simply watched the news and waited to see what would happen next. In the fleet, Ambassador Al also watched and waited. His ships held their position at the edge of the asteroid belt, arranged in a perfect formation that demonstrated their military discipline. 12 warships, each one powerful enough to destroy a small planet, more than enough to intimidate a primitive species like humanity. "Ambassador," said his sensor officer, "we are detecting a vessel approaching from the inner system." "On screen," Al commanded. The holographic display flickered and showed the approaching ship. Al leaned forward in his chair, expecting to see some crude human vessel made of primitive metals and powered by chemical engines. What he saw made him freeze. The ship was enormous, far larger than any vessel that had expected humans to possess. Its hull was covered with weapons. Its engines burned with an energy signature that should have been impossible for human technology, and it was moving fast, very fast. "What is this?" Al whispered. His military advisor commander stood beside him with wide eyes. "I don't understand. Our intelligence said humans had nothing like this. Their most advanced ships are small shuttles, research vessels. This is a warship." "I can see what it is," Al snapped. His diplomatic calm was cracking. "What I want to know is how. How did they build this without us seeing it?" No one had an answer. The Goliath continued its approach. As it got closer, the true scale of the vessel became clear. It was longer than some of the ships. Its weapons systems were massive. The main cannon alone was larger than most human spacecraft that they had observed. On the Goliath's bridge, Amy Wells opened a communication channel. "Fleet, this is the United Earth vessel Goliath. We are responding to your invitation for diplomatic discussions. Please confirm that you are ready to receive us." There was a long pause before the response came. When Al's voice finally spoke, it had lost much of its earlier confidence. "This is Ambassador Al of the Collective. We confirm receipt of your message. We are prepared to begin discussions." Another pause, then Al added, "We were expecting something smaller." Ben Harper allowed himself a slight smile. "Lieutenant Wells, please inform the ambassador that Earth builds things to last." Amy relayed the message. They did not respond. The Goliath slowed as it approached the alien fleet. Ben studied the ships on his display. They were impressive vessels, sleek and elegant with smooth hulls and glowing engines. They looked like they had been designed by artists as much as engineers. Each one was beautiful in its own way. The Goliath was not beautiful. It was ugly and brutal and covered with weapons. It looked like exactly what it was, a machine built for one purpose: destruction. "They're scanning us," Laura Kent reported. "Heavy sensor activity from all 12 ships." "Let them scan," Ben replied. "They won't learn much. Our hull plating blocks most sensor types." Laura nodded. "They're figuring that out. I'm seeing a lot of confused chatter on their communication frequencies." Ben could imagine the conversations happening on those alien ships. They had come here expecting to meet a primitive species. They had expected to offer humanity a choice between submission and destruction. Instead, they had found something they didn't understand, something that frightened them. Good, fear was useful. Fear made people careful, and Ben wanted them to be very careful in how they handled the next few hours. "Open a channel to Admiral," he ordered. A moment later, Kate's face appeared on a side screen. She was in the command center on Earth, surrounded by military officers and government officials. The president himself was visible in the background. "Captain Harper," Kate said, "what's our status?" "We've made contact with the fleet. They seem surprised by our vessel." Kate smiled. "I imagine they are. Proceed with the diplomatic protocol. Show them respect. Show them courtesy. And show them that Earth is not a species that can be bullied or conquered." "Understood, Admiral." Ben straightened in his chair. "The Goliath stands ready to defend humanity." "I know you do, Captain. Make us proud." The channel closed. Ben turned back to the main, where the fleet waited in silence. "Lieutenant Wells," he said, "inform Ambassador Al that we are ready to begin negotiations, and let's see what these aliens really want from us." The next few hours would determine humanity's future among the stars. Ben intended to make sure that future was one where humans bowed to no one. The holographic meeting room flickered to life in the center of the Goliath's bridge. Blue light created shapes in the air, forming the images of Ambassador Al and his advisors on the flagship. On the human side, Captain Ben Harper stood with Admiral Kate appearing via transmission from Earth. Al studied the humans with his large, dark eyes. His gray skin was smooth and unmarked, showing his age and status among his people. He had conducted hundreds of these meetings throughout his long career. He had always been in control. He had always known exactly how the conversation would end. Now, for the first time in centuries, he was not certain. "On behalf of the collective, I welcome humanity to the galactic community," Al began. His voice had recovered some of its earlier smoothness, but there was tension underneath. "We have observed your species for many years. We are impressed by your progress, your art, your music, your determination to reach beyond your world." "We appreciate those kind words," Admiral replied. Her image stood beside Ben, solid and unafraid. "Earth is honored by this visit." "We come with a generous offer," Al continued. "The galaxy is a dangerous place. Many species have failed to survive without guidance, without protection. The collective offers humanity a place among our member worlds. You would retain your planet, your cultures, your identities. You would simply accept our oversight in certain matters: government, military, scientific research. These would be managed with our assistance." Ben watched the alien closely. The words sounded nice: guidance, protection, assistance, but he knew what they really meant: control. They did not want partners, they wanted servants. "We would also require that humanity surrender any weapons capable of interstellar combat," Al added. His eyes moved to the that showed the Goliath's exterior. "Vessels such as this one would be decommissioned. For everyone's safety, of course." "Of course," said. Her voice was perfectly calm. "And what does humanity receive in return for these adjustments?" "Access to galactic trade networks, advanced medical technology, agricultural improvements that could end hunger on your world forever." Al spread his hands in a gesture of generosity. "The benefits are considerable. Most species accept our offer within days of receiving it." "And what happens to species that don't accept?" Al's face remained pleasant, but his eyes hardened. "That has not happened in a very long time. When it has happened in the past, the results were unfortunate. We prefer to focus on peaceful cooperation." The threat was clear: accept our offer or face destruction. Al had made this threat to dozens of species before. None of them had possessed the power to refuse. Ben stepped forward. "Ambassador, we appreciate your offer, but before we discuss it further, perhaps a demonstration would be helpful, to show you the capabilities that humanity brings to this potential partnership." Al frowned. What sort of demonstration? Something simple. Ben nodded to Laura Kent at the tactical station. Lieutenant, target asteroid 479, the one approximately 300 meters in diameter. Targeting now, Captain. On the ships, alarms began to sound. Commander shouted orders to his crew. The alien warships shifted their positions, weapons systems charging with energy. What are you doing? Al demanded. You are targeting our position. Not at all, Ben replied calmly. We are targeting an asteroid approximately 50,000 kilometers from your fleet, a safe distance. We have no hostile intentions, Ambassador. We simply wish to demonstrate what humanity is capable of. Al hesitated. He looked at his military advisor, who shook his head urgently. But the ambassador's curiosity was stronger than his caution. He wanted to see what this primitive species had created. He wanted to understand how they had built this impossible ship. Proceed, he said finally. Ben looked at Laura. Fire main cannon, 20% power. Laura pressed a single button. The Goliath shuddered as energy surged through its spine. The main cannon glowed with brilliant white light. Then a beam of pure destruction shot forward into the darkness of space. The asteroid never stood a chance. When the beam touched its surface, the rock did not explode. It did not break apart. It simply ceased to exist. 300 meters of solid stone converted instantly to plasma and scattered particles. One moment there was an asteroid. The next moment there was nothing but fatting light and drifting dust. On the ships there was complete silence. Commander stared at his sensor displays. His hands were shaking. That's impossible, he whispered. That energy output, that level of destruction, it's impossible. Al said nothing. His gray face had turned pale. His diplomatic mask had cracked completely. 20% power, Ben said quietly. That was 20% of our main cannon's capability. We also have secondary batteries, missile systems, point defense weapons, and several other systems that I won't describe in detail. The Goliath was built to protect Earth from any threat at all. Admiral spoke again. We did not build this ship because we wanted war, Ambassador. We built it because we learned long ago that peace must be defended. We hoped we would never need to use it, but we prepared for the possibility that we might. Al finally found his voice. You hid this from us. You deceived us. Our probes watched your planet for 60 years. We never saw any sign of this technology. Because we didn't want you to see it, replied. We knew you were watching. We knew what you expected to find. So we showed you exactly what you expected. Primitive rockets, fragile space stations, a species struggling to take its first steps beyond its world. But behind that mask we were working, Ben added. Every nation on Earth contributed, scientists, engineers, soldiers. We built facilities that your probes could not detect. We developed technologies that your experts said were impossible. We prepared for this day for 40 years. Why? Al asked. The question came out as almost a whisper. Because we read your history, said. We intercepted your communications. We studied every species that joined your collective, and we saw what happened to them. They lost their independence. They lost their culture. They became servants working for interests. Some of them were used as soldiers in your wars. Others were stripped of their resources. None of them remained free. Ben stepped closer to the holographic image of Al. We will never let that happen to Earth. We will never bow to the collective or any other power in this galaxy. Humanity stands alone, and humanity stands strong. The ambassador looked at the human captain. He saw no fear in those eyes, no uncertainty, no room for negotiation. The humans had come to this meeting with a clear purpose. They would not be intimidated. Then what do you propose? Al asked. A new kind of relationship, replied. Not protector and protected, not master and servant, equals, trading partners, perhaps even allies if trust can be built between us, but never subjects, never servants. Those terms are not acceptable to humanity. Al looked at his advisors. Commander was still staring at the empty space where the asteroid had been. The other officers looked just as shaken. None of them had expected this. None of them had prepared for a species that could match military power. "I need to consult with the High Council," Al said slowly. "This situation is unlike anything we have encountered before." "Take all the time you need," Ben replied. "The Goliath will remain here until discussions are concluded. We have food, water, and fuel for months if necessary. We are patient, Ambassador. We have been waiting for this moment for a very long time." The holographic meeting room flickered and disappeared as Al ended the transmission. On the Goliath's bridge, the crew sat in silence. Then Amy Wells spoke. "Captain, I'm picking up heavy communication traffic between the ships. They're definitely talking about us." Ben smiled grimly. "Let them talk. They have a lot to think about, and when they're ready, we'll be here to continue the conversation." He looked out at the stars. Somewhere beyond those distant lights, entire civilizations were going about their daily lives. Most of them had probably never heard of Earth. That was about to change. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy. Now it was time to see how the galaxy would respond. 3 hours passed before Ambassador Al requested another meeting. 3 hours of silence from the fleet. 3 hours of tension as both sides waited to see what would happen next. When the holographic conference room activated again, Al looked different. The confidence was gone from his face. The smooth, diplomatic manner had been replaced by something harder and more honest. For the first time since the meeting began, Ben Harper felt like he was seeing the real alien behind the mask. "I have spoken with the High Council," Al began. "They are concerned. They have many questions. I admit that I have many questions myself." "Ask them," Admiral replied. "We believe in honesty, Ambassador. Now that our capabilities are clear, there is no need for secrets between us." Al nodded slowly. "Very well. My first question is simple. How did you develop this technology without us detecting it? We have been watching your planet for 60 years. Our probes are the most advanced in the galaxy. Nothing escapes their sensors." Ben looked at Dr. Chris, the Goliath's chief science officer. Chris was a thin man with glasses and messy brown hair. He looked more like a professor than a military officer, but his mind held secrets that had taken decades to develop. "Your probes are impressive," Chris said, "but they have limitations. They scan for specific energy signatures, specific radiation patterns, specific construction materials. We learned what those limitations were, and we designed our facilities to avoid detection." "How did you learn our probe capabilities?" Commander demanded. He had been silent since the destruction of the asteroid, but now his anger was showing. "That information is classified at the highest levels." "We captured one of your probes in 1987, Chris explained calmly. "It crashed in a remote area of our planet. We recovered it before your retrieval team could arrive. We spent 15 years studying every component, learning how it worked, understanding what it could and could not see." Al's eyes widened. "The probe, we thought it was destroyed during atmospheric entry." "That's what we wanted you to think. We placed debris in the crash area. We created false sensor readings. Your recovery team found exactly what we wanted them to find. Meanwhile, the actual probe was being taken apart in an underground laboratory." "This is madness," said. "You are a primitive species. You barely understood nuclear power 60 years ago. How could you possibly reverse engineer technology that took us thousands of years to develop?" Admiral smiled. "You're right that we were primitive, Commander. We still are in many ways, but humans have one quality that you seem to have overlooked. We learn very quickly when we are motivated, and the knowledge that we were being watched by an alien civilization was extremely motivating." Ben stepped forward to continue the explanation. "Once we understood your probe technology, we knew what we were dealing with. a powerful civilization that conquered weaker species. We realized that when you finally came to Earth, you would not come as friends. You would come as conquerors, so we prepared. We built research facilities deep underground, Chris added. Laboratories in places your probes could not scan. We recruited the best minds from every nation on Earth. Scientists who were told that their work was for military defense projects. Engineers who thought they were building experimental aircraft or submarines. Only a handful of people knew the truth about what we were really doing. What you were really doing was preparing for war, Al said quietly. We were preparing to survive, corrected. There is a difference. We have no desire to attack the collective or any other species. We have no imperial ambitions. We simply refuse to be conquered. That is our only goal. Al leaned back in his chair. His eyes moved across the human faces before him. He was looking for deception, looking for weakness, looking for any sign that these primitives were bluffing about their capabilities. He found nothing but calm determination. "Tell me about your technology," he said finally. "Not your weapons, your other achievements. If you are as advanced as you claim, you must have made progress in other areas as well." Ben nodded to Chris, who activated a display on the Goliath systems. Charts and diagrams appeared in the air between the two groups. "We achieved sustainable fusion power 32 years ago," Chris explained. "Clean, limitless energy that we have been slowly introducing to our public power grids disguised as improved solar and wind technology." They looked stunned. Fusion power was considered the mark of a mature civilization. It typically took species thousands of years to develop after their first space flights. Humans had done it in less than a century. "We developed faster-than-light travel 21 years ago," Chris continued. "We have sent unmanned probes to over 200 star systems. We have mapped collective territory. We have studied your military capabilities. We know the locations of your major shipyards, your fleet bases, and your command centers." "Impossible," whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. "We also developed medical technologies that have extended human by an average of 30 years, Chris said. "Agricultural systems that could feed our entire population 10 times over. Communication networks that allow instant contact between any points in our solar system." "None of this was visible in your broadcasts," Al said. "Your entertainment shows portrayed primitive medicine, polluting vehicles, governments that could barely cooperate on basic issues." "Because we controlled what you saw," explained. "We let your probes observe our public activities, our entertainment industry, our political debates. We showed you a species that was divided, chaotic, and technologically limited. We showed you exactly what you expected to see from a primitive world." "But behind that screen we were united," Ben added. "For the first time in human history, every major nation agreed to work together on a single project. We set aside our differences, our conflicts, our competing interests. We focused on one goal, protecting our planet from external threats." Slammed his fist against his chair. "This is an outrage. You have deceived the entire collective. You have violated every principle of honest contact between species." "We lied to protect ourselves," Ben replied calmly. "Would you have done anything different in our position? If you discovered that a superior civilization was watching you, waiting to conquer you, would you have shown them your true capabilities? Or would you have hidden your strength until you were ready to defend yourselves?" Had no answer. Al raised a hand to silence his military advisor. "Captain Harper asks a fair question. We would have done the same. Any intelligent species would have done the same." He paused, studying the humans with new respect in his eyes. "We underestimated you. That was our mistake. The question now is what happens next." Nodded. "We agree that is the important question, and we have a proposal that we believe will benefit both our peoples." "I am listening." "We do not want war with the collective. We do not want to be your enemy, but we also refuse to be your subjects. What we propose is a new kind of relationship, equal partnership based on mutual respect and mutual benefit. The collective has never had such a relationship, Al said slowly. We have always been the senior partner in all our alliances. Then perhaps it is time for something new, Ben said. Times change, species grow. The old ways do not always work in new situations. Humanity offers you something that the collective has never had before, a partner that cannot be conquered, a partner that must be treated as an equal. Al was silent for a long moment. The weight of centuries pressed down on him. Everything he had believed about his civilization's place in the galaxy was being challenged by these strange, stubborn, impossible humans. I must speak again with the High Council, he said finally. What you propose will require much discussion, much debate. It may take considerable time. We understand, replied. We have waited 40 years for this moment. We can wait a little longer for your answer. The meeting ended. The holographic images faded, but something had changed in the space between the two fleets. They no longer looked at the Goliath with contempt. They looked at it with something closer to respect. Perhaps even fear. On the bridge, Ben Harper turned to his crew. Well done, everyone. Phase 1 is complete. Now we wait and see if they're smart enough to take the deal we're offering. Amy Wells looked up from her console. And if they're not smart enough, Captain. Ben's eyes hardened. Then we show them what Phase 2 looks like, and nobody wants that. The stars continued to shine in the endless darkness, and somewhere among them a galaxy was waking up to a new reality. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. 2 days passed. The Goliath remained at its position near the asteroid belt, its engines idling, its weapons ready. The fleet held their formation nearby, maintaining a respectful distance. Neither side made any aggressive moves. Both sides waited. Captain Ben Harper spent most of that time reviewing tactical plans and contingency options. If they decided to attack, the Goliath could hold its own against their 12 ships. The simulations showed favorable odds, but simulations were not reality. War was unpredictable. People died in wars. Ben hoped it would not come to that. On the third morning, Amy Wells received a transmission from the flagship. Captain, Ambassador Al is requesting a final meeting. He says the High Council has reached a decision. Ben felt his stomach tighten. This was the moment that would determine humanity's future. Tell him we're ready. Set up the conference room. The holographic systems activated one more time. Al appeared in the blue light, his gray face showing the strain of the past 3 days. Behind him stood Commander and several other officers. Their expressions were carefully neutral. Admiral Kate's image appeared beside Ben. On Earth, the President and the Joint Chiefs were watching through secure channels. Billions of people waited without knowing what was happening above them. Their entire future was being decided in this moment. Ambassador said, "We are ready to hear the Council's decision." Al straightened his shoulders. Despite everything that had happened, he still carried himself with dignity. Ben respected that. The High Council has debated extensively, Al began. There were many opinions, many concerns. What you have shown us has caused considerable disruption to our understanding of the galaxy. We can imagine, Ben replied. Some council members wish to reject your proposal entirely. They argued that the collective cannot afford to treat any species as equals, that doing so would weaken our position and encourage rebellion among our existing member worlds. Ben's hand moved slightly toward his command console. If they had decided on war, he needed to be ready. However, Al continued, other council members made a different argument. They pointed out that war with humanity would be costly. Even if we eventually won, the losses would be significant, and our victory is not certain. Your ship is impressive. We do not know how many others you may have hidden away. We have more, confirmed. The Goliath was our first, it is not our last. Al nodded slowly. We assumed as much. The council debated this fact as well. Ultimately, they concluded that a new approach is needed. The galaxy is changing. Old strategies may no longer serve us. He paused, looking directly at the human leaders before him. The collective accepts humanity's proposal for equal partnership. Ben let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. Around him, his crew exchanged relieved glances. On Earth, the president and his advisors would be celebrating quietly. But the work was not finished yet. "We are pleased to hear this," said. "What are the specific terms?" Al gestured to one of his aides, who began reading from a document. "First, humanity will not be required to join the collective as a member world. You will retain full independence in all matters of government, military, and scientific development." Agreed. Second, both parties will establish embassies on each other's territories. These embassies will facilitate communication and diplomatic relations. Agreed. Third, limited trade will be permitted between human and collective worlds. The specific goods and services will be negotiated separately. Agreed. Fourth, the Sol system will be recognized as human territory. Any vessel entering this space without permission will be considered hostile and may be dealt with accordingly. Ben raised an eyebrow. This was a significant concession. The collective rarely acknowledged any species' territorial claims. Agreed, said. Fifth and finally, Al continued, both parties agree to share information about external threats to galactic security. The universe contains dangers that neither of us fully understands. Cooperation may benefit us both. Nodded slowly. We agree to this as well. We have no desire to see any species destroyed by threats that could be prevented through shared knowledge. Al signaled his aide to stop reading. Then we have an agreement. The High Council has authorized me to sign on behalf of the collective, who speaks for humanity. I do, replied, with the full authority of the United Earth Government and its member nations. The two leaders exchanged formal acknowledgments that would be recorded and transmitted throughout both civilizations. When it was done, Al allowed himself a small, tired smile. This is a new beginning, he said. I confess that I did not expect it when we first arrived in your system. I expected a simple integration, a quick addition to our growing list of member worlds. Instead, I found something entirely different. What did you find? Ben asked. Al considered the question. I found a species that prepared for the worst while hopping for the best, a species that hid its strength until strength was needed, a species that refused to submit even when submission seemed to be the only option. He paused. I found a species worthy of respect. That is a rare thing in this galaxy. Thank you, Ambassador, said. We hope to prove worthy of that respect in the years to come. The meeting concluded. The holographic images faded. On the Goliath's bridge, the tension that had built up over 3 days finally released. Crew members smiled and shook hands. Some laughed with relief. Others simply sat quietly, absorbing the reality of what had just happened. Ben Harper remained at his station, watching the fleet begin to turn away. They were leaving. The crisis was over. Humanity had survived its first contact with an alien civilization, and it had emerged stronger than before. Amy Wells looked up from her console with a strange expression. Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from across the galaxy. News of what happened here is spreading fast. What are they saying? Everything. Some species are afraid of us. Some are curious. Some are celebrating because they think we've weakened the collective's power. Amy shook her head in amazement. We're famous now, Captain. The whole galaxy knows about Earth. Ben nodded slowly. This was what they had wanted, but it was also dangerous. Fame attracted attention. Some of that attention would not be friendly. Let them talk, he said. We'll deal with whatever comes next when it comes. Laura Kent spoke up from the tactical station. Captain, Admiral is requesting a private channel. Ben stepped into his ready room and activated the secure connection. Kate's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but satisfied. "Well done, Captain," she said. "You and your crew performed perfectly." "Thank you, Admiral, but this is just the beginning, isn't it?" Nodded. "It is. They will honor this agreement because they have no choice, but other species will test us. They'll want to know if we're as strong as we appear. They'll probe for weaknesses. They'll try to find ways to manipulate us." "What are your orders?" "Continue your patrol of the outer system. Let any watching species see that the Goliath is real, that our power is real. Show them that Earth is not a target, Earth is a fortress." Ben straightened. "Understood, Admiral. We'll make sure the message is clear." "I know you will," paused, her expression softening slightly. "Ben, what you've done today matters, not just for Earth, for every species that has ever been conquered by the collective. You've shown them that resistance is possible, that strength and preparation can overcome superior numbers. That message will spread far and wide. I hope it brings more good than harm." "So do I," smiled. "Safe travels, Captain. Earth is proud of you." The connection closed. Ben returned to the bridge and sat in his command chair. Through the main, he could see the stars stretching out toward infinity. Somewhere among those distant lights, civilizations were learning about humanity for the first time. Some would become friends. Others would become enemies. All of them would remember this day. "Helm," Ben said quietly. "Set course for outer system patrol, standard speed." "Yes, Captain." The Goliath turned and began to move. Its engines glowed with steady blue fire. Its weapons remained powered but silent. It was ready for whatever the galaxy might send its way. Behind the ship, Earth hung in space like a small blue jewel. It was a tiny world in a vast universe, but it was no longer alone, and it was no longer afraid. Humanity had taken its place among the stars. The journey was just beginning. But for the first time in history, that journey would be on humanity's own terms.